Why, hello, it is I, Chris Brogan, with the news, here on location at my parents' house in beautiful Las Vegas, Nevada. Dad is taking some friends to the airport, and Mom is next door saying goodbye to the friends, so I'm here on my own for a little bit, so I can bring you the news. So what is the news? The news is where I read a whole bunch of things that I find are kind of interesting. I share with you why I think they're interesting, and give you some insights on what these might apply to. The conversation almost is always around business culture, future-forward technologies, if they improve some kind of human interaction, and or, just occasionally weird artsy-fartsy stuff. I do this using Ecamm Live. It's the best way to do Facebook Live for Mac. I love it, and I can't recommend it enough. So if you want to follow along with me, you can go to chrisbrogan.com/CBM, and you can watch everything that I'm giving you right now. All of these news stories are covered here. So chrisbrogan.com/CBM will get you started moving along with us on the news. First off, one of the stories I wanted to share with you is from Chatbots Magazine. Chatbots Magazine talks about why voice-first technology matters. This is something where I'm only telling you this because this is what I've been paying a lot of attention to. We have an Amazon Alexa in our house, and we now have a Google Home in the house because I'm testing out all of this stuff. But this gets kind of interesting because this person's saying, I even talked to my Roomba. Now, not that the Roomba can answer back. It's a robot vacuum cleaner. It doesn't even know. But voice interfaces are going to come to more and more things. And as they work on getting better, there's a lot of challenges still with them. But more and more, we're losing keyboards and we're going to move to things more like more voice interfaces. So it is very, very important to pay attention to this. And in regards to that as well, I wanted to point out that there's a whole bunch of new things coming to Google's Assistant. Google Assistant works with or without a Google Home. You can use it also on your phone. But for instance, it does a whole lot of things like understand things that it sees. So Google Lens can actually identify objects and add different text to them and assign different values and whatnot and make sure that it understands what you're talking about. It can do on-the-spot translations. So you can use Google Assistant for all kinds of really fast translations in multiple languages. It's pretty impressive. There's, of course, a whole bunch of new context stuff being added in, and also more personalization. This right here specifically, personalization, is one that really matters to me. I think it's really important to have it understand a little bit more about who it's talking with, because this is one of the things that's missing with platforms like Amazon Alexa. So it's definitely worth checking out. It's definitely somewhere where we're going. We are going to have our Jarvis. It may not be powering Iron Man's suit, but it is most definitely going to give us something that we didn't have before, and it's worth paying attention to. Up next, speaking of sort of things of this nature, if you're a little worried about privacy, Google's new dashboard makes it easier to see what the company knows about you. So you can swing by the privacy dashboard and check out My Activity and My Account tools to see what Google knows about you. This is kind of fun. It's always interesting to see. It's also funny where it gets it wrong. Some of the things that Google thinks about me are not quite accurate, and I really got a kick out of seeing what the computer robot gods thought about. Have you considered or thought about or are looking into things like cryptocurrency and Bitcoin? I wanted to talk about this particular article, this particular YouTube video I found about how to buy your first Bitcoin, and you can watch it on your own leisure, but it goes through a little bit of hype and fun and stuff like that, but then it goes through the whole process of what it takes to buy yourself some Bitcoin. You might not be in that market just yet, it might not be your thing, but just understand that there's even easy to follow along YouTube videos so you can decide whether or not that's something of interest to you. At this point, I've just started investing a little bit in cryptocurrency. I was going to point out something else. Joel Comm has a new show about this too. And I think it's called something like the Bad Crypto Show or something. Yeah, the Bad Crypto Podcast. So our buddy Joel Comm has a show that you can also check out if you want to follow along in an audio podcast about the whole thing about cryptocurrency and blockchain. There's a lot to learn there, and there's a lot that still kind of quasi doesn't make sense. And as you start getting into it, you find yourself going, whoa, I didn't know what I didn't know. And then further, it's amazing some of the things I believe about the existing money system that aren't true anymore. I don't have a very good segue for this. This is just in my ongoing tracking of poor PewDiePie, and I don't really mean poor PewDiePie. Oh, did I skip a story here? Yeah, I totally did. I jumped way ahead. There we go. Felix Kjellberg, also known as PewDiePie, has unfortunately put himself into yet another controversy. He was playing a video game called PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, and in the process he got really mad at another player and shouted out the N-word. In gaming talk, this sometimes happens, and in non-gaming circles, it's a little strange because if you're not exposed to it, you don't know that it's something that happens in the world of gaming. But of course, it's not the right word to use, and of course, he's in trouble for it. So this is YouTube's number one person, has the number one subscribers on YouTube, and he got in trouble for busting out the N-word during some gameplay. Like I said, and this is in no way any kind of an excuse or whatever, but this is troubling and challenging for a lot of reasons. That YouTubers are already having trouble. There's something that's gone on called the adpocalypse, where advertisers are suddenly like, whoa, we have no controls over what these creators are making. All this independent creation is a challenge for us because we can't decide or vet or whatever what is family friendly or not. And for his part of this started because of PewDiePie a little while ago, where he was being accused of making all these Nazi references and whatnot. In his mind, in his methodology, what he was putting forth, he was being satirical about it. And I can tell you that I have so many stories from, I think, 2008 or 2009. There was another circumstance that happened to another video creator. A lot of times when white men tend to try to be satirical, they kind of go off the rails and make a bad choice and don't really do a good enough job of explaining that it's satire, and come off as tasteless and poor taste and not really helping anybody else. So the reason the story is interesting is because this adpocalypse is impacting a lot of independent video creators, because a lot of people have pulled back their advertising from the YouTube platform, which means that one, if there's no revenue, then of course the whole platform suddenly starts looking a little weird to Google to keep maintaining. But then two, what are small independent producers who have done nothing particularly wrong? What are they going to do to eke out some kind of a existence if they're hoping to make their revenue from YouTube? The answer is don't make your revenue from YouTube. However, that's not the story. And again, it's the weirdest thing to say, but it's strange that the fact that Kjellberg yelled at the N-word during a video game strangely had nothing to do with being racist. He doesn't know the race of the other player of the game. In gaming context, this kind of these sets of bad words, which shouldn't be acceptable, are common vernacular at this point. And I don't say them because I'm a grown-up, but I hear them almost every time I play a game, and I call it out when I hear it. And at the same time, it's strange that language is shifting in some sort of a way where it is desensitizing to certain phrases like this. So slap to PewDiePie for making some bad choices. And in the realm of slapping, Al Jazeera America reports that Pope Francis is slamming, quote, stupid climate change deniers. What world are we in where the Pope is saying, listen, you all better listen to scientists, you're a big bunch of fools. This is the same church that most often has to say to people things that people worry aren't especially scientific. And yet, here's our Pope, the Pope Francis, saying, hey, get on it with these scientisty people. This, I don't know. I don't know if you're a coder. I'm not a coder. I don't know a ton of coders. But I found it kind of interesting to note that Python seems to be the fastest growing language according to the site Stack Overflow. Why is that interesting? Hard to know just yet, but it is kind of interesting that it's an older programming language. I think it came out in the 1990s or whatever. A lot of other people have been talking about this whole other programming language called R, but it's just interesting that these languages are growing, and I guess it's important to know. And if for some reason you're in the world where you're helping people understand what they should or shouldn't do for coding circumstances, Python seems to be the language. Let's move on. Are you the kind of person who checks your phone way too much? Maybe you are. I know that I used to be that person. Lifehacker has a post out called 10 Tips for Checking Your Phone Less, 10 Tricks. So in here you can find some information, for instance, on how to stop checking your phone in the car, which I guess is probably the most important one. Number 2 is to move your phone elsewhere when you're watching TV or reading. So I put my phone in airplane mode a lot when I'm reading. Turn off notifications is a really, really, really important one. I think it's really important to follow this particular step. I just had a realization that there is no mute on the microphone here because I just realized I'm about to sneeze. Number 5 is choose an endpoint for your browsing session, meaning, put a timer or something like that. Make it so that when you're just sort of spamming your phone, maybe you should get off it every now and again. Stop checking your phone when you're in line at grocery stores and all that. You don't need it. Don't use your phone in bed. This is like most people right here said, forget this. I'm not following the rest of this article. and also break the checking cycle. And then it also says don't expect a quick fix, which I don't understand how that's a trick to not checking your phone, but bless their heart for making a numbered post in the first place. Do you know much about Cheddar? I only just recently saw an interview with the founder of Cheddar at this event that I was at, so I didn't know much about the company, but they're calling it the CNBC for millennials. I haven't watched too much of the videos, but I finally did when I saw this, where they just made a big, huge hire of this really interesting person who they brought on, whose name is Anjali Kumar. I hope to God I said that well. He's a former Warby Parker exec and also was a lawyer at Google, and he's going to help Cheddar be their first general counsel. And the reason they brought him on is because they're making deals so fast that they need a better law system inside to get these deals going. That's how fast they're getting partnerships and deals. It's really important to pay attention to something like Cheddar because they're remaking media that we kind of consider already a little bit, stagnant or that hasn't been around, and they're making new versions of it. We got 2 more stories to go, and then we're done with the news. This next story is in the blockchain and Bitcoin realm. Finland is calling Bitcoin revolutionary, and it's yet another one of the central government banks who is looking over at this technology, which, by the way, the whole point of things like Bitcoin was to say, let's decentralize money so that it doesn't exactly have to be tied to any particular government. And it's interesting that governments are looking at it going, this might be really useful to us. So that's an interesting story to follow. So that's from Bitcoin and Finland. Last story of the news is Morgan Spurlock talking about he's going to make a Super Size Me sequel, and it's going to be about big chicken. What he says is he decided to come out and figure out if he was going to start his own fast food chicken restaurant, what would that entail? Who would he have to talk to? How does it work? How does he help out chickens? What's the system like and all that? What he says is that he made Super Size Me very much from the consumer's side of the table, and what he wanted to do is make a story from the big corporation side of the table and see what it was like. So you have that to look forward to. This story is something that I created using Ecamm Live. It's the best way you can do Facebook Live on a Mac. Go to cbrogan.me/ecammlive to check it out. This is the news. This is where I read stuff that I find interesting. You can find all the information for yourself if you want to go to chrisbrogan.com/cbm. You can follow any and all of the links I found, so you don't have to ask me what it was I was talking about. You can find out for yourself. Thank you so much. I'm doing it live on location at my parents' house in Las Vegas, Nevada. I'm going to be speaking a little later today at the American Marketing Association's event. Talk to you soon. Love you much. Merry Christmas. Vaya con quesos.